1951. This is The Legend. 105.3, 95.3, WDXE.
That's us, WDXE, and it's time for Friends and Neighbor Hour. Friends and Neighbors Hour brought to you by Keller Williams Hood Company. And our friend and neighbor today is Miss Dolly Leighton. I've been looking forward to this, Miss Dolly.
Well, so have I.
Well, so have a lot of us. Miss Dolly Leighton, a familiar name to many of us here in Lawrenceburg and Lawrence County. And you guys, you've been involved with the theater group, the Lawrenceburg Community Theater Group, for quite some time. And when did you first start that, by the way?
Well, that was back in 1968 was when we got our charter.
Yeah.
And the founders were, I had a wonderful mentor who was older than me, Miss Jeanette Held.
Yeah.
And the two of us together started the theater.
Okay.
She had been to a workshop and had seen a little play called The Familiar Stranger, and so
Yeah.
in the summer we gathered a group of young people and older people and performed in the cafeteria of what was then LCHS.
Yeah.
Kind of an in the round performance, and it went well. And so by the next year we were ready to apply for a nonprofit organization charter.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, we'll come back to that as well as a lot of stuff, but I want to remind everybody that, and you do too, this weekend we got a big show.
Oh, yes.
Tell us about what's happening this particular weekend, and then we're going to go back in history with you.
Well, we've really been rehearsing, I'll say that.
You have.
Of course, I'm the oldest one in the entire cast. That doesn't need to be said, but that's true. And so I am pretty tired when I go home at night from all the choreography and the singing and everything. It can be quite tiring, but it's so much fun. So many new faces and a huge cast, and I'm having a great time.
You do have a big cast. Of course, we're talking about Lights Up, which is the community theater group presentation of, it's a review of Broadway's best musicals, and I happen to know, and I had it queued up, but I can't play it the way we're doing this. I had queued up Hello, Dolly. And, I happened to be in the theater, just a sneak preview of you doing Hello, Dolly. That's so cute. That's going to be so much fun.
Well, it comes from the fact that my entire life, Hello, Dolly hit Broadway when I was a junior in college.
Yeah.
In 1964. And so my entire life, people have greeted me with "Hello, Dolly."
Yeah.
They'll sing that little bit. So I've heard it my entire life. However,
Yeah.
when we got ready to put it together and we got the men, I have 13 men on stage with me. The younger men had never heard it. They had no idea.
Really?
Yes, because they're too young to know it. It hasn't been revived on Broadway in recent years.
Interesting.
And, although I did get to see Carol Channing in it at TPAC several years ago.
Yeah.
And she was the first singer of
Yeah.
Hello, Dolly.
Interesting.
And first one to perform in it.
Okay.
Of course, a lot of people know Barbara Streisand more because she was in the movie of Hello, Dolly, but now she was actually too young to play the role.
Yes.
It was Dolly Levi was close. She was a lot closer to my age than
Yeah.
Barbara Streisand was.
I guess Barbara Streisand is who I remember playing it. And
Yes.
I think I probably went to see the movie.
Oh yes, it was a popular movie afterwards.
Yeah.
So.
So that's interesting. Very interesting. Well, I want to go back with you on a more of a personal level, I guess, and then we'll come up to the theater life. But are you a native of Lawrence County?
I am a native of Lawrence County. I grew up in Etheridge.
In Etheridge.
Yes.
Who was mom and dad?
My mom and dad were. He was called Nub Bryan.
Yeah.
L.L. Bryan.
Yeah.
He owned the general merchandise store there
Okay.
right in town, and so I grew up there. My mother was Sarah Bryan.
Right.
And because my actual legal name is Sarah, they started calling me Dolly as a baby, and so that name has stuck all my years. It does give me some problems sometimes getting on an airplane if you don't have match your legal
Yeah.
material. So I've had to kind of be sure I have something that has the legal name on it nowadays.
So it's Sarah?
Sarah, yeah.
Sarah Dolly.
Well, no, there's no Dolly anywhere in it. It's Dolly is my nickname and has been all these years. But only in these last few years when legality has been important, has it ever been a problem. My entire life, it was never a problem with it. But,
Oh, yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
That's interesting. So you grew up in Etheridge.
Grew up in Etheridge, went to Etheridge Elementary. My mother was very active in the PTA. She was a district PTA president, and I grew up in the Crockett Theater. That was my babysitter. When she couldn't drive, and my dad would drive her to these different places to speak, and they would drop me off at the Crockett Theater, and I would see a movie through maybe twice at night before they got back to pick me up. Mr. Rulander was, I guess, my babysitter while he cleaned up the
Oh, really?
theater. I
Really?
was watching movies, and of course back then a child could see any movie that was on. They were all
Oh,
clean,
yeah.
and you didn't have to worry
Yeah,
about it. So
all good, wholesome movies.
I saw one movie with Tyrone Power and Pippa Laurie called Mississippi Gambler 6.5 times in 1 week.
Oh, really?
So, growing up with the movies, no wonder I was interested in theater.
Well, yeah. Now, you said your mom was speaking. I missed it. I was looking at something else here. So what was she speaking? What was she doing?
Well, she was a district PTA president.
Oh, okay.
And so
Okay.
she had to go around and speak to different PTAs at
Oh,
various
okay.
other counties and everything. So
Yeah.
there was time there that, and back then, no babysitter.
Yeah.
So I just got to go to the movies a lot.
Well, that was a good treat, I guess.
Oh, yes. I
That was a good
loved
treat.
movies.
Now, what did your dad do? Is he farming
Or no, he was the owner of that grocery store. Well,
Okay.
it's not just groceries, it was general merchandise. They sold everything in that store.
Okay.
And of course, back then there were no Krogers and there were no, you
Right.
didn't, in fact, my dad and one other person were the only ones in town in Etheridge that owned a car when I was just real young.
Okay.
Nobody else.
Oh,
People didn't
wow.
run up and down. Daddy would actually carry people to town to do business when they actually needed to. So.
Okay. All right. So y'all were kind of, I guess, well known, a prominent family in Etheridge there.
Well, I guess we were.
Yeah.
My parents didn't treat me prominently, but
Do you have any brothers and sisters?
I have an older brother, or I had one. He's already passed. He was 9 years older than I was, so
Oh,
we were
okay.
each one almost like an only child.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So
How about that?
I can imagine what I was like for him to have to keep up with. But see, he went off to college.
Oh, yeah.
Before I was very old. By the time Mother was leaving me at the theater, he was already off in college.
So you got to see a lot of movies at the theater as a young girl, and then went through elementary school, I guess, at Etheridge. And high school,
Lawrence County High School.
Lawrence County High School.
And I hated the fact that we had no drama. The only drama we had at Lawrence County High School when I went through it was in the senior year out of senior English class. We were allowed to put together a little one-act play
Yeah.
each year. And so I was in a play called Bobby Socks.
Oh,
And we got on stage. Of course, I was active in the band, and, that was...
what instrument did you play?
I played alto saxophone.
Alto
And I
saxophone.
was a majorette.
Do
So.
do you still play? Did you keep that up over the years?
I wouldn't have the air to do that.
So after high school, what happened with Dolly after high school?
Well, from there I went on to David Lipscomb College, as it was at that time.
Okay.
And I knew that they had a drama department, and so I was very active in drama at all the plays. I was not on stage but one time, but I learned to direct by sitting at the elbow of Jerry Henderson,
Yeah.
who later came here to Lawrence County
Yeah.
to help us in some of our productions.
Yeah.
But I would watch him direct, and I would take his notes. And so I was more interested in production side
Yeah.
of theater than actually being on stage.
Yeah. We may have somebody that wants to ask a question or talk to you. Let me see. And you may have to have your headphones for this. I don't know. Hey, good morning. You're on WDXE with us.
Jeff,
Yes.
Dolly, a lot of people don't know it, but she was in a band with Mike O'Rear, J.W. Durham, and some others in the 8th grade.
Yeah.
She played saxophone, and they won the local talent contest.
Oh, they did.
Might
Absolutely.
ask her about that.
Well, you just did. You just did. How about that?
Okay.
All right. Very good. So tell us about that.
Well, with my dad having this car and everything, they picked up a lot of us kids, and we went different places. And yes, we were in a talent show, and I played the alto saxophone, and Mike O'Rear, of course, was on the guitar. And then we had backup singers. J.W. Durham was one of those.
Oh, really?
Yes, and there were quite a lot of us that stayed around here in Lawrence County. But anyway, we sang Party Doll. And so it was a lot of fun back
Now,
then.
where did y'all go do this?
It was a 4-H club thing.
Okay.
All
right. Well, good deal. Good deal. Now, what year did you graduate high school?
1961.
1961. Mm-hmm. Well,
start adding it up, and you'll know where I am in age.
Well, I'm not going to add that up.
Well, I guess I'm really proud to finally be 80 years old.
Yeah.
So
well, bless you. and you look fantastic.
Well, thank you. I feel pretty good.
Well, good. Well, good deal. Well, good deal. I was born in 1961, so I'm following you. How about that? Following you right up. Now, so high school, you went to David Lipscomb, and I was going to kind of ask. I know you mentioned the fact that you got to see a lot of movies as a little girl, but when did you begin to really think that you want to be a kind of in the drama and play and be on stage, that kind of thing? Was that an early dream? Or?
Oh yes, that was always because of the movies. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I was just very interested in performing, and I know in the 3rd grade I got to play Snow White Goes to PTA. Anytime I got to get on the stage, I loved it. But there just weren't opportunities at that time, and especially at the high school when we should have had. And so one of the things I did when I came back to teach at LCHS, which was in 1968, then that's how I was there with Jeanette, who was my mentor as far as teaching in the English department.
Okay.
And then I started with, they gave me a speech class. Well, I knew speech, half of it was going to be drama when I took it. So one half of the year we did speeches, but then we went right on into drama. And so that's how all of this came together then with the community theater was happening at the same time that drama finally came to LCHS with me.
Okay.
I was determined that some
We'd have
kids
a
were
drama
going to,
class, yeah.
yes, some kids were going to get to do something that I always wanted to do, but we didn't have the opportunity to do.
Can you remember maybe some of the very first plays or dramas that were done at the high school?
Well, the plays were done in conjunction with the Lawrenceburg Community Theater. There would be, in the very first place, Bobby Davis was an adult that was in Charlie's Aunt, which was the very first play that I directed. And
Okay.
Kenny Thompson played the lead. He's, of course, the younger brother of Fred Thompson.
Okay.
And then from there, the plays that I did back then, there were about 5 plays that I did before I retired to have children. So I taught for 6.5 years at Lawrence County High School, and then I was out for 13 years with 2 young boys, and that's when it really went over to me being involved in the community theater.
Okay.
Totally, because those students then, that 2 of them are still with me today, have been in the theater. Kay Luffman is the chairman of our theater board today. She was in one of those first plays that I did. And Wanda Carvel Mabe, she
Yes.
does our costumes now. I know when I signed for them to do costumes of Romeo and Juliet, and had to show with the colors, the different families and everything. That's when she first got started interested in costuming, and so she's been our costumer all these years.
Oh, wow.
So those 2 early students have stayed with me in the community theater all these years.
Wow. So you were at LCHS, you started help with the drama, got that started in conjunction with the Lawrence County Community Theater. Now, and at some point, you decided to write a play.
Well, the Historical Society approached me about doing a pageant about David Crockett. And I wasn't much for pageants. I thought, why not just make this a historical musical?
Yes.
So while the baby slept in the crib and the 2.5-year-old was already asleep at night, I would be up writing music, which I could not play on the piano till they woke up. So I would check and see if my melody was working correctly and everything. And so I wrote Gentleman from the Cane, and of course then we performed that in 1976 outdoors at the park down on the creek with people sitting in just in bleachers.
I actually attended that.
Did you?
I sure did. I remember it.
And if the K notes were going really good at that time. All those men that were singing that were in the Kiwanis Club, and they were, most of the men in it, I think, were members of that group. Because that play required a lot of men, because men were more prominent at that time, and so the women were more or less the helpers or the whatever, and the pretty faces on stage.
I was in high school at that time. Teresa and I were dating, and she and I went to that play, Gentleman from the Cane. It was a big deal. That was an amphitheater done outside.
It was just these bleachers, and we performed several plays down on that creek just in that little bleacher situation. With the bluffs lit behind it. I know we did Little Abner and
Gosh, I remember
Oklahoma. Paint Your Wagon, and then by the time we got around to 1983 with Fiddler on the Roof, they had built the new amphitheater that's out there now, which we were the reason that amphitheater was built.
That's right.
Because we had one year that our attendance was close to 6,000 for the 2-week run of Gentleman from the Cane, because people were interested then in going to historical plays. And they came into the park and to see it, And,
that's true. That was a big deal. I remember that. There was a lot of people that came to see that play in particular.
I know one year I kept up with it. We had 30 different states represented and 5 foreign countries in the run of that 1 year of that play.
Wow. How many years did you guys do that play?
Well, it's been an on and off thing over the years. I think about 5 or 6 times there in the park, and then we revived it at Crockett Theater a couple of times, and then we did a kind of a abridged version of it with just the music and later. So it's going to be 50 years old. Its 50-year celebration will be in 26.
Really?
So we probably will bring it back to Crockett Theater, because all these young people now don't know the history of Lawrence County and David Crockett, and don't know this play because they've grown up later.
I was in my head. I'm thinking, it needs to be done again.
Well, we want to bring it out every time, and right now I'm working with a young lady on the possibility of writing orchestration for it, rather than using just a piano organ type thing that we had to use back then. So I'm hoping to get it orchestrated and before we can do it in 26. And I won't direct it this time. I want someone else younger to direct it. I think it's always good to get someone else's ideas of how it should be staged and everything. And I've already mentioned it a little bit to Cord Perry that I'd like to have him to do it if he would.
Well, it's a tremendous amount of work.
Yes, it is, but all plays are a tremendous amount of work, and really, to judge what is the how well a theater is doing, you have to look at, do you have production people?
Yes.
If you don't have production people, you don't have people who are truly dedicated to theater. A lot of people want to be on the stage and they want to perform. But not everybody wants to really get into production, which means all your lights, sound, video sometimes, costuming, makeup.
And what about the props, the stage props?
The props, the sets.
The sets is what I meant to say.
I have a barn full of sets out at my place. That's where we store all the sets, and we don't have to build anything much. Everybody comes out and goes to the barn and goes in there and finds
what they need.
What they need, and just restructures it or paints it or whatever. My husband James, who passed away in January, was our master set builder for years. He would, anything I directed, he built the sets or was in charge of. I'd draw out. Of course, we didn't know CAD drawing and all that sort of whatever. I would draw it out on a piece of paper, and then he would figure what would work and what wouldn't. Of course, I had no idea what would work and what wouldn't. No, that won't stand up. You've got to have,
Yeah.
you've got to do this or whatever with
Right.
it. So we work together as partners on a lot of sets, you
Yeah.
know, so.
That's a big part of it in making the play what it should be, is having the sets.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
We watched, the last play was Fiddler on the Roof.
Yes.
Me and my family went and enjoyed that, and great performance.
Well, I think Cord Perry designed those sets, but they were built by Corey and Katie Jewell. Corey's a really good
Yeah.
builder, so
Yeah.
he's taken down that. Our sets this time are very simple because we've got 50-something people on stage. You don't have much room for sets.
Yeah, you've pretty much been involved from the get-go. Pretty much all the plays that come along. Are you kind of a part of them, or at least in touch?
There was a period of time that I was at Loretta High School. When I went back to teaching, I went
Yeah.
to Loretta High School and started their drama department.
Okay.
And so I was involved in plays down there for a number of years that took me out of the mainstream of the Lawrenceburg Community Theater, but then came back into it later and tried to involve some of those students up this way as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Interesting. Wow. Well, the group that you got now, you got people that have been there a long time and newcomers.
Oh, so many newcomers, and I don't even know the names of all of them. I mean, I keep hearing names, and I've never been really good at remembering names anyway. But I'll know first names, but I'll have no idea what their last name is because they haven't been called by that. And
Yeah.
I looked at the list of people, but tying the person to the actor sometimes is very difficult. But we have a lot of new talent on the stage. It's so exciting to see. I think one thing that has really helped to renew interest is Cheryl Augustine's willingness to take on this. It's Christmas, y'all. She started
Yes.
with, and we pulled in a lot of people there, and it's going to do it again this
Yeah.
Christmas as well, and involved some young people in that, and then to do the Peter Pan Jr. Back in the spring.
Yes.
We needed earlier on. She had done Tom Sawyer with some young people,
Right.
and now she'll continue doing that, I think.
Sure.
And that has begun to pull in these young people that we were using in high school.
Yeah.
And they've come on into it, so that's good.
I wanted to ask you. You mentioned just briefly the amphitheater that's now, or the new amphitheater that came to the Crockett Park, and there were several events out there. Is that being utilized anymore at all?
I think they're having groups of country singers or
Some
whatever
singers.
that come in to entertain in the summer with the folks that are there camping and whatever, or
Right. Now we have the plays that happen with the theater, and what I was going to ask about is is this the same group that does the dinner theaters
Oh yes,
too?
the majority of our plays. I'm kind of added up since I was coming here.
Yeah.
A few years ago, we decided to list all the plays that we had done
Oh,
since
my.
it was first conceived.
Yes.
And this play right now, Lights Up, is number 126. But most of those plays were done in the basement of the Park Restaurant dinner theater.
Yes.
Now, it didn't start out as dinner theater. Again, back to those very first years, we were performing in the cafeteria where E.O. Kaufman is now, in the round, because the gym stage was not appropriate for, it was concrete and
Yes.
everybody was playing ball out in the, so
Right.
we didn't use that.
Right.
But then what we did was, Jeanette Hill's husband, James Hill, was with the power system, and he came out to the park and in the basement put in some overhead wiring so we could do in the round there
Right.
for dinner theater. But we didn't start with dinner theater. We just did performances without the dinner at first.
Oh, okay.
And that's where we did, let's see, we did Charlie's Aunt and Blast Spirit at at the school. And then we moved out there with The Odd Couple, which had Michael Jeter in it. He had also been in Blithe Spirits, so that's when he started his career. That we're also proud that he went on to win Tony Awards and all that sort of thing. But then from there, we did a few plays out there in the basement, and opposite to what it is now, the performers were not on the stage. We had platforms that we put chairs on around it, and then we just performed on the floor. Now it's the opposite of that. But the majority of that 126 plays that we've done have been dinner theater shows.
Yeah.
There was a time, and we would that's when we would call in professional directors for the summer. Jerry Henderson, my college drama professor, was the first one, and he came several years here and stayed in Lawrenceburg, and he would direct the outdoor show, the musical outdoor show, and then he would direct 2 or 3, like July, August, and September dinner theater shows.
Okay.
And that was the most active period for the theater. For several years there, we had.
What were some of the shows that you did in the dinner theater?
Well, in the dinner theater, things like See How They Run, Table Manners, Living Together, Lo and Behold, Don't Drink the Water, Bad Year for Tomatoes, which we repeated this last fall.
Yes.
Was one of those plays. So.
Bad Years for Tomatoes.
So they were just delightful comedies that audiences would enjoy. And we had buses coming in here during that period of time from down in Alabama, and all the bus loads of people would come in. And so there was and you think about the actors at that time. And that was when I was down at Loretta, or somewhere else. They would be acting in a show and getting up the next show on Saturday to begin as soon as the 1 month of this one, then the next one would go up. So it was a continual thing. And
oh, wow.
Very, very involved at that time.
Yeah. Have you, and I thought about this a minute ago, we mentioned Michael Jeter. Mm-hmm. And of course he went on to become in movies and a star, sure enough.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And an award-winning actor.
Yes.
Are there others that have come through the theater that have had some notoriety or success that you know of? Of course, we think about, and I don't know if he was involved in the theater group at all, but Fred Thompson, of course, was an actor that came from Lawrence County.
Well, his younger brother, Kenny, went on to and got training, and I took my students from Loretta to TPAC to one of the performances in Nashville, and there was Kenny on stage acting in it. So Kenny, but of course Fred, being Fred, most everybody knew who he was.
Oh, yeah.
And so here was this younger brother who was actually trained in theater.
Yes.
And continued on, and I understand Kenny has a son that's going on in theater as well.
Very good. Very good. I was going to kind of turn back just a minute to the Gentleman from the Cane for a moment.
Yes.
And if you could, I was thinking maybe you'd kind of take us through that play from a historical perspective as far as how it develops and what happens.
Well, I had to do a lot of historical research, and went all the way back into the county records of who were the commissioners, what all happened between Crockett and Buchanan, who was very prominent in Lawrenceburg about where the actual city of Lawrenceburg got placed in the county.
Right. There was some dispute over that.
Oh, there was a big dispute. David Crockett wanted it where his property was, which was the actual geographic middle of Lawrence County.
Right.
And Buchanan wanted it where it is now. He won this argument.
He won the argument.
He won the argument.
Yeah.
And they were all, David Crockett was one of the commissioners, and so was he. And so there was, then I used a lot of the characters that were those men and their wives. I could search the marriage records.
Oh, yeah.
And every young person, of course, there's 6 young couples in it that that are the teens of the day.
Yeah.
And those couples actually were married later. They were actual characters everybody's got in it. Just about everybody except Blue Water Gal, who didn't even have a name. She
Yeah.
was just the little floozy that was happened to be around, and, you know,
Okay.
that all the boys were looking at. You know.
Okay.
They all had historical names and were historical characters here in the county.
Okay.
And I would be interested if we do it again in 26, I would be interested in seeing how many of these people still have descendants here
yeah.
in the county.
That's interesting.
That we know, because a lot of them moved away just like David Crockett did.
Sure.
So, you know, I don't know whether we have very many that are here that descend from those first commissioners or not.
generations, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Interesting. So as you develop the storyline of the play, where does it begin?
Well, it actually begins with when David Crockett moved here.
Okay.
And so when he first arrived here.
Okay.
And Enoch Tucker was a commissioner who seemed to always side with David Crockett.
Okay.
And so I made them buddies.
Yes.
And of course, then Daniel Beeler, you know, there's a Beeler branch, part of Shoal Creek,
Yeah. Yes.
kind of close to our property. Kind of goes down to that branch
Yeah.
of Beeler Creek. He was one of those commissioners. That branch of Shoal Creek was named for him.
Okay.
And there is a little cemetery that's kind of protected, that has some people that were during that period of time over on the hill behind us. I know some of the early historian, part of the historical society here, came out, and the road that went from Powder Mill Hill actually went through our property and down that hill, and by that where that cemetery was, rather than where
Okay.
Highway 64
Sure.
was, you know. So
Very interesting. Very interesting. So he comes to Lawrenceburg, Lawrence County, and begins to get involved. And at what point, and of course, it's just kind of a history lesson, but it also, you know, is your play. At what point does he become really highly political?
I guess when he was chosen, when they were having a contest for who was going to be the head of the local militia. You're asking me to remember what it's been a while since I wrote this play.
It's been a while since you wrote that play.
And I don't go back and just read it a lot. You know,
Yeah.
it's been quite a bit of time. But he got in a contest and then went on from there to
Yeah.
the legislature,
Right.
which was meeting at that time in Murfreesboro, not in Nashville.
Yes.
And so the state legislature.
Right.
And that's where he got the name Gentleman from the Cane, because
Okay.
somebody had called him that in a derogatory way at the legislature. So he showed up in his buckskins with a little hanky at his at his neck.
Yeah.
That was his ruffles. So,
Yeah.
so
He had
he'd
a
be dressed up.
personality. He had a
Oh, he
personality
did.
from what we can tell.
Oh yes, and he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way too.
Well, some people rubbed him the wrong way, I guess.
Yes.
And he's quite famous for that.
Yes.
Interesting stuff. I was going to ask you too. The play, has it been performed elsewhere that
There-
you know of?
Well, there was a year, and I can't tell you which year it was, that the Tennessee Department of Education asked for excerpts from it to send out to all the elementary schools
Okay.
to perform sections of it about David Crockett. They were evidently studying
Sure.
Tennessee history or whatever.
Right,
I
right.
don't remember all the details, but I certainly gave them permission.
Sure.
And so other than that, it belongs to Lawrence County.
Yeah.
And I plan to, although while I own it right now, I plan to put it for future use under the auspices of the Lawrenceburg Community Theater and possibly the Historical Society.
Yeah.
To keep it here because it is, back when we did this, outdoor dramas were a big thing.
Yeah.
People didn't mind mosquitoes, and people didn't mind heat in the summer to sit
Right,
out on a
right.
hard bench and watch a play.
Right.
So Helen Lindsay, who was on that one of our first charter members, she and I traveled to different plays
Yeah.
to see what they were doing other places.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they would have, there was a national group of outdoor drama institute.
Interesting.
And so we would travel and see these plays, other places, and meet with other people. And in fact, one time we went to the play Texas, and I think she didn't get to go, and so James took her place. The two of us went, and in Chicago they lost our luggage, and we had to go to the opening banquet in our shorts.
Oh, my.
We didn't have our clothes with us. We also went to the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. to a meeting there.
Yeah.
And also to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, to the university there, and kept up with what was going up. Each group would advertise the other outdoor dramas that were going on for travelers, and so it was a big thing. But that sort of died out. I think they still do Unto These Hills over in the mountains.
Oh yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
I remember that.
But it's just that people are not accustomed to sitting out.
Do they still do the Helen Keller play?
Well, now yes, I think they still do that down in
Yeah.
And that wasn't really included in the group because it's just in the backyard of the home where she lived. I went to see that one. Took some students to see that one.
Yeah,
time.
Tracy and I went to that several years ago. Now I will say it was hot.
Oh yeah.
It was blistering hot.
Well, see, we were performing this in July, and I don't. It was, and those costumes.
Oh my gosh!
I mean, long skirts, long sleeves, the men in buckskins of all kinds, and all this stuff. It was a hot play, but I don't recall that it was as hot as it is now. I mean.
Well, I think we were just more used to it, to be honest.
Well, we were. A lot of people didn't have air conditioning that much
we,
back in the 70s.
Yeah, we stayed outside. I was talking to my daughter, bless her heart, about the fact that when I grew up, our cars didn't have air conditioning.
No, the windows were air conditioning.
We were just kind of, and I remember being told to stay outside and don't come in till I tell you.
Yeah.
No matter how hot it was.
Yeah. Well, my dad put a big we had a basement of the house that was cooler, and so he put a big a fan at the door of the basement to pull that cool air up through the house at night. Now, this was when I was younger. Later on, we had air conditioning by the time I was in high school. But he pulled that air up, and I remember one night there was this big kablooey. And I thought, it woke us all up.
Oh,
I came out of my room, and my dad and my mother came out of their room, and Daddy just nearly stepped on a rat that had come up out of the basement and hit that fan blade, and it threw it.
Oh my gosh.
So needless to say, we did a little more rat proofing and also finally got air conditioning, so we closed that door.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, I'm impressed and have been, for many years really, with your dedication to all this. You've really been dedicated to the theater, the performance, the local theater group, bringing drama to the high school, all that kind of stuff. That's just been a real passion.
It is. It always has. I've always enjoyed. I've enjoyed seeing and performing in and being backstage. I really enjoyed directing. This is the first time that I have ever sung on stage. A solo.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Really?
I don't get on stage very often. I'm not really an actress.
Well, for those of you who want to see Miss Dolly sing, I can tell you that you're in for a treat because I got a little taste. I got a sneak preview during one of the rehearsals when I was picking up May. May's in this play we're doing now, or this performance, I should say. And I got a little sneak preview of you rehearsing your song. You got some backup help too.
Oh yeah, 13 guys up there with me. What could you ask for better than that?
That's so good. That's so good. Well, so is it a first time singing at all?
Well, I have been in the chorus of. And I say I didn't sing. I did have a few little lines, I believe, when we did an outdoor production of Fiddler on the Roof. I was the witch or the grandmother type thing and Larry Moore was playing the lead, and it rained one night, I know, and I was leaning over him, scaring him, and he was on the edge of that we had a little edge to to the amphitheater stage, and
Yeah.
he was leaned back over that, and he fell over in a mud puddle. And of course, I couldn't turn around. I was supposed to whirl when I went back up stage. Well, I couldn't whirl because I was dying laughing.
Oh, I would have been too. I'd have been out of it.
But I've not been on stage a whole lot. I basically have stayed in production, but particularly I enjoy directing a play because that way I have a conception of what I want it to look like,
Yeah.
and I truly enjoy that. But I'm glad to hand that over. And I have to remind myself, it seems like that Cord Perry and Bethany Nelson are awfully young. But I remind myself that I was young. I had done 4 plays younger than they are now.
Oh, yeah.
Directed. So I know that they bring such a life to this show. I'm glad to see there's a vitality to this show that
Yeah.
you might not see out of one that somebody my
Well,
age
those
would
two
do.
have been involved in the theater for a
Oh,
while.
yes,
They
and they
have.
love it. They love
and
it.
of course, Cheryl and Bob Augustine.
Oh,
have been.
yes,
I
yes.
seen last night. I seen Joey Riddle come out of the theater.
Joey's been in lots
a part
and
of
lots
it
of
for a long
plays.
time. But I don't mean to be leaving anybody out. These are just names that I
Yeah, right.
have seen.
That are still involved and have been for years. And Bob Augustine has directed a lot of plays, especially the dinner theater shows. He's done a lot of those, and he's been in so many, and so has Joey. They've been in a lot of them. They're just part of the old hands. What worried us for a while, back, I would say 7 or 8 years ago, we were beginning to worry
Yeah.
that the community theater was going to die out because we didn't have true diehard interested people in theater, and that's why I say production people,
Yeah.
people who are willing to direct and to do all these things behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And if you don't have those people, you don't have a play.
Yeah.
And nobody realizes how important those people are. They are, in a way, more important than people on stage in a way because they're the ones that make you look good.
And these are not paying roles. These are volunteer.
No.
This is all volunteer effort.
This is a non-profit 501(c)(3) nonprofit organization and has been all along. So
Yeah.
this is not something for anybody to get rich at.
No, not at all. Well, you do it for the sheer enjoyment of it, and
we do.
and actually for the benefit of the community as well. I don't know if people realize just how much they may be missing by not coming to see a live performance.
Yes.
There's a difference.
Oh, there is, very much so.
Yeah.
And aren't we blessed to have Crockett Theater?
Oh, yeah.
It was never meant to be a live performance place. It was a cinema.
Right.
But there have been things done that have made it better. It still needs a lot more work, and I'm glad to see that the city is interested in doing some updating. I know that, for one thing, the air conditioning system desperately needs redone, but we need the lighting too. Well, our sound is pretty good. They bought a soundboard back several years ago, and the sound is pretty good. But the lighting, the actual bar of lights is behind the actors.
Yeah.
And so the holes that were cut overhead, which I think that's when Bob Augustine was on the Crockett Theater board.
Yeah.
And when those things were done, we need more lights in better places overhead, and so you've got this juxtaposition of the historical factor that it is on the historical register, the theater is,
Right.
versus using it for performances and being able to bring in all these acts from other places and things to sustain the theater.
Yes.
And so that's one of the problems is it has to be updated, but at the same time you have to maintain this historical side of it as well.
Sure. You don't want to do anything to destroy
take that away.
Take away from the historical look and aspect of the theater, but at the same time, it does need to be modernized for modern performances.
And thanks to the performance series that Cherry Plant oversees, there's a board with that as well.
Right.
They have managed to make enough money to enhance the backstage area on the south side,
Right.
where it's much more usable. Of course, it's still very small for 50, however many people there are back there.
Right.
But they have made it much better with some dressing rooms and restrooms. All that's been updated back in that area.
Yeah.
So, we appreciate that much being done, but there's so much more needs to be done for it to really. These big names that come in here to perform,
Yeah.
they look for some perks. I mean, they're used to having a nice backstage area, and there is a much better place now. But they come in here, you know, they're treated differently than we locals treat ourselves.
Well,
So-
yeah, we want to make it attractive to
For them to want to come.
to them to want to come.
Yes, yes.
And of course comfortable for everyone, really. You mentioned the HVAC system and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, and
And I'm sorry to say, and I don't want this to discourage people from coming, but we have to turn it off during the performance and then turn it back on during the intermission. And so we get it very, very cold to start with.
Yes.
And then so that and of course for us backstage, it's hotter than it is in the audience. The
Yeah.
audience will never get as hot as
is
we
that
do.
for just a sound purpose?
The sound purposes. One of them screeches terribly when it turns
Yeah.
on, and it's very loud. And so I'm so glad that that's in the works to get that.
So there is an effort
Yeah,
being made.
yes, there
to
is.
correct
I think
that.
there was a grant that is covering that the city
Yeah.
got, and that's to be done, and it really needs to be done.
Someone called earlier about the theater and asking about who owns it, and of course the theater itself
Belongs to the city
belongs
of Lawrenceburg.
to the city of Lawrenceburg,
Yes.
so it belongs to us.
Yes.
It belongs to us as citizens of Lawrenceburg and Lawrence County, really,
Mm-hmm.
who benefit from having it, and it's a great asset to the community, really.
And you know, I think we are probably one of the few of the ones around here. I know we don't own a theater to use. The community theater uses the park. The park, you know, so when you pay for your meal out there, you're paying, most of that is for the meal.
Yeah.
We get our $15 is what we get.
Yeah.
And per head. And
Yeah.
so here we have we try to keep our prices as cheap as possible here at the
Yeah.
Crockett Theater, but of course there's also a fee that needs to go to the city for the upkeep of the place.
Right.
And so you know, we don't have a theater for just Lawrenceburg Community Theater like Star Theater has in Pulaski.
Right.
And other theaters around that.
So the community, the Lawrenceburg Community Theater, as a group, what is your official name?
Our is Lawrenceburg Community Theater.
That's it. So
That's it.
So the 5013C is
Is Lawrenceburg Community Theater.
And so that group is a nonprofit, but you do not own your own facility.
Right.
We're using facilities that are here available to us.
Yes, that's right.
And so the funds that are collected for like this performance, I think the ticket's $18.50 or something like that. It goes to pay for the use of the theater.
Well, it goes
For the most part.
Well, it goes. Most of the lights that are hanging overhead, we bought and
Yeah.
and put in the Lawrenceburg community.
Right.
We have enhanced the theater ourselves by providing. Have you bought any sound equipment lately?
Oh, I
Or
know.
lights?
Yeah.
You know, just the microphones on the heads of those people. We're having to trade. I think it's about 16 mics to 50. Well, not all 50 of them. Not all. Everybody doesn't have on a mic all
Right.
the time, but we're
Right.
having to trade those mics around, and those babies are $500 a piece.
That's right.
So that's the kind of things we have had to put our money into is a lot of the enhancement as far as sound and lights. And so we've left those lights are used by everybody that the community theater put in the Lawrenceburg in the Crockett Theater.
So the community theater, Lawrenceburg Community Theater Group, has contributed to the upkeep and help
Oh, yes.
of the theater
Yes,
itself.
yes.
Even though it's a Lawrenceburg property,
Right.
It's just something that you do. And of course, you're right. The audio equipment.
It's
is
terribly
unreal.
expensive. And not only that, people don't realize that when we do a play like Fiddler on the Roof,
Yeah.
we have to pay huge royalties to the company that owns that. We also rent they provide the scripts, and we have to take good care of those. If they're written in permanently or anything like that, we have to buy it. So
Oh.
we have to tell our actors not to.
Right.
There's all of this stuff that goes with it.
Interesting.
It
I don't think people realize that when you do a play such as Fiddler on the Roof, there are
Peter Pan
copyrights.
Jr. too.
Peter Pan, any of those plays,
Right.
they
They are
have to
owned.
be paid. They're
Yes,
owned.
yes,
So-
and we have to pay quite a bit up front before we ever put the play on.
Yeah.
And that's because that money has to go down. So, like a lot of times $2,500 just for the rights, and then you add then the music, the musical tracks that go with them. You
Yeah.
have to pay for those.
Yeah.
And so sometimes they come from another company. I know when I did Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, they came from a totally different company that we had to hire get the use of that music. So it's not that's where your money goes.
Yeah. A movie crossed my mind. I've seen it as a movie, but I think I was told it was a play at one time too. I'm not sure, but it crossed my mind while I was talking to you. I don't know if we've ever done it here or would ever do it. Is arsenic and old lace on the list anywhere? Have you ever heard of it?
Oh yes, well it's done by the high schools, and I know Lawrence County High School,
High school.
Has done
Okay.
arsenic and old lace.
Okay, so that's, I don't know why it came across my
Yeah,
mind, but
that's
it's just maybe that's
an
where
oldie. That's kind of like Harvey.
Yeah.
The one with the
Yeah.
rabbit.
Yes.
The invisible rabbit
Yeah.
on stage. Yeah, those are some of the old ones and sometimes we pull those back out again, and people enjoy them again.
Well, in our last couple of minutes, I want us to invite folks and tell them a little bit about the current performance.
Oh yes, I'm gonna tell you, you will be thoroughly entertained with this. The vibrance, the excitement. I think Cord Perry and Bethany Nelson have just done an outstanding job of putting this together, and there's so many different musicals that there's a song that represents that.
Yes.
And so many talented people singing those songs
Yeah.
that you just wouldn't want to miss it. It's very good. Some of the plays, I might just mention some of the plays that there's music from Hairspray, Annie, Little Shop of Horrors, Grease,
Yes.
Cats, Chicago, Sound of Music, Les Mis, Course Line, Annie Get Your Gun, Jersey Boys, Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, Wicked. Anything Goes is probably the oldest one that's been
Anything
represented,
Goes.
and that's my favorite number because all these tap dancers are up there with Beth Lerner singing. It's just fabulous.
And Mary Poppins.
I
Is
don't think we have anything from Mary Poppins.
Is it? I was thinking he had the supercalifragilistic.
Oh yeah, well that's a part of the medley at the first. Yes, there's a huge
That's it.
6-minute medley with the whole cast on
Okay, so
stage, and
that's
we're
it.
busy. Ooh, it's a workout. I stay in the back on that one.
Well, I knew that because I've heard my daughter practicing it. So.
Oh yes,
Yes.
yeah. We have to spell it.
Oh yeah.
Now, don't look at my lips on part of that because I'm back in the back probably saying watermelon, watermelon, watermelon.
I would be doing the same thing. Oh, wow. Well, listen, we really appreciate you coming. Miss Dolly Leighton, our guest today on Friends and Neighbors. And of course, I think, and I'm kind of disappointed to tell you that our camera didn't work. Now, our audio worked. It's on Facebook. The audio's on Facebook. All of it's out there. But for some reason, the camera picture didn't show up. So you and I weren't on
Well,
camera.
maybe that's good.
We weren't on camera during this, but all of the show is there, and of course we want to invite again everybody to go out to the Lights Up presentation, the musical review of Broadway's Best, June 28th, 29th, and 30th. Miss Dolly Leighton, thank you. We'll have you back again sometime.
Oh, I always love to come. I love to talk, so there's no problem.
Well, thanks for being with us this morning. Okay.
Okay.
All right, God
Thank you
bless.
very much.
6 defendants are facing. The court is also expected to rule on a challenge to Idaho's strict abortion law and how far cities and states can go in prohibiting the homeless